Everyone, Dr. Hanisha here. Thank you so much for joining me on my podcast, Mahan Health with Dr. Hanisha. Mahan literally translates to great in Sanskrit, and it only makes sense to have the absolute best when it comes to your health. My goal is by you listening or watching this podcast, you're getting just a little bit closer to achieving Mahan or great health yourself. This podcast is all for you, so please make sure to comment what you'd like to learn more about so I can get a guest on the show who's an expert in that field, or I might even talk about it myself. I am seeing patients and clients all over the world virtually right now, so please make sure to book your free 15-minute phone call today to see how you can start achieving Mahan or great health yourself. I'm really excited about today's episode. I had the opportunity to interview a really good friend of mine, an esteemed colleague, and my former boss, Dr. Mary Pardee. Dr. Mary Pardee is a naturopathic medical doctor and a certified functional medicine doctor who specializes in integrative gastroenterology and hormone balancing in Los Angeles, California. She is the founder of modrn, a telemedicine and virtual wellness company that provides medical and health services to clients across the world from the comfort of their homes. Dr. Mary is also the Chief Medical Officer and board member for Our Academy Global. This is an organization whose mission is to provide opportunity to homeless and ex-felons with a holistic 360 approach. I think this is so cool, and I'm really excited that she's a part of this organization and the chief medical officer of this organization because it's really going to make a lot of change for so many people and improve so many lives. So I'm really excited for that. I also want to mention that she, like I said before, she's one of my really good friends and my former boss. I used to work with her at modrn, and I'm so grateful for all that I learned from her. She is one of the most intelligent people I know, and I'm so excited to have you all listen to her because I'm always learning so much from her every time we talk. And so I hope you get something out of this too. In this episode, we talk a lot about how your gut health can affect mental health and vice versa. This is a bidirectional pathway, and we really get into what this actually means in this episode. So I'm going to stop talking now so you all can enjoy the episode. Let me know how you feel afterwards or reach out to Dr. Mary or myself. All right, enjoy. Hello, Dr. Mary. How are you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well, enjoying the sunshine here.
Same. It's beautiful here. I'm in California.
Yeah, I know. So that's nice.
I know,
it's
you
always
know.
Beautiful there. Yeah, that's true. For us, we actually had yesterday, the weather changed every 5 minutes. It went from raining to sunny to it even snowed for 5 minutes. And then it went back to sunny. It was fascinating.
Yeah, the world's trying to tell us something.
I know, right? But all right. Well, thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate you coming on, and I love your kitchen. Looks so cool.
Thanks. Yeah, you know what? I've gone back and forth between doing things like in front of like white wall, green screen, like, you know, like really. And sometimes I was like, yeah, I feel like I just want people to know exactly where I am. I'm in my kitchen.
Yeah. And that's where we all should be right now. All right. Okay. So let's get right into it. Tell us a little bit about your journey. How did you get involved in naturopathic medicine? And yeah, just give us your story.
For sure. Yeah. So I have, like we all do, especially in naturopathic medicine, my own healing story that brought me to natural medicine in general. I had gut issues growing up as a young girl in terms of I had a colonoscopy, I want to say by the age of 12 or 15, endoscopy, was always constipated, bloated, uncomfortable, diagnosed with SIBO. So I kind of went through the conventional medical system to its full extent. I did every test possible, saw every specialist that I could see. And eventually I met this doctor and he said, you know what, I've looked at your record. You've been to so many doctors. You're just going to have to live with this. And there's nothing else we can do for you. And so I had tried medications. I had tried a bunch of things and they weren't working for me. I left that appointment. And by that, I think I was 20 years old. I left that appointment in tears. And I felt like there was just this misunderstanding. And for that encounter, there was a complete lack of bedside manner. But I don't think that a doctor should ever say that to somebody. I think that there's always more things that we can look into, and there's got to be a solution to a lot of these things. And so I eventually stumbled on naturopathic medicine years after, just kind of figuring out what I wanted to end up doing with my life. And it was like the light bulb went off. I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. And then I ended up seeing one personally. I was so fascinated by the amount of information that they knew. They were telling me things about gut health that no doctor had ever told me before. And I had seen all the doctors. And so it was that connection where I was like, this is exactly what I want to do. And I worked with a doctor. My stomach got better. I ended up healing myself throughout medical school, and to this day have virtually no gut symptoms. And I say that totally honestly. And I will say, and we'll talk about in this episode, but a lot had to do with things that aren't technically like supplements or, you know, what we consider gut healing. But a lot have to do with mental health and mental state as well. But so it was my own healing journey that I was like, I need to become the doctor that I never had as a young girl. I want to be that person. I want to be the person to, you know, hug the girl and say, we're going to figure this out. Like maybe we haven't looked at everything. Maybe we just looked at your gut and maybe something is going on from your mindset, or maybe it's something else that's related, which for me was a big part of it. So that's kind of where I got to where I am now. And so that's why I'm specializing in gastrointestinal health. So I work with a gastroenterologist in Los Angeles, and I do integrative gastrointestinal health. So I use the best of functional medicine, naturopathic medicine, as well as some conventional medicine. So I'm not anti-conventional. I just think that we need to use it when it's appropriate and not use it when it's not appropriate.
Right. Yeah, I love that story. And I love how your story also entailed the addition of or combination of the gut health or physical health with the mental health, because that is so important, right? And I think that even when we tell our stories, sometimes we forget that it was more than just supplements and nutritional changes.
And I think we can't belittle that either. And so, you know, my patients know that I don't belittle it, because sometimes they're like, I get it. Like I'm doing it. But it's because it's so important. It's not, sometimes it's not 30%, sometimes it's 90%, and sometimes it's not, sometimes it's 10%, but there's always going to be a percentage there that's going to be our mindset, our thoughts, our beliefs, our mental health that's going to be involved.
Definitely. I mean, it's all connected, and that's really what our medicine is it's a whole body perspective, and whole mind, body, and spirit, right?
Yes.
Okay, so let's get into it then. Let's get right into the topic. So this is a lot of what we wanted to talk about too, and it makes sense why I wanted to talk to you about this, because you've been through this. And so let's talk about, can you kind of go through that gut brain connection for us a little bit? And let's start with that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the gut brain connection, we throw this term around, but what the heck does it mean? Like, is our gut like physically connected to our brain? Like, how does it work? And so even places now like Harvard, Cleveland Clinic, Johns Hopkins, these renowned institutions realize that there is a gut brain connection, and that our gut health is likely, and they just say that it is connected to our mental health in some way. So this is no longer a alternative or holistic belief. It's very mainstream. How our gut is connected to our brain is through a few different mechanisms. So one of them is a physical connection through the vagus nerve. So your vagus nerve is a branch of the parasympathetic nervous system, and that's your rest and digest part of the autonomic nervous system. And the vagus nerve innervates everything from your mouth down to the lower part of your colon. So it actually helps with motility and secretion of enzymes and stomach acid and all of those things. So there's a physical connection, which is a big one. The other one is through the microbiome. So we have a collection of bacteria in our intestines, about 100 trillion bacteria. We also have fungi. We also have viruses that are normal residents of our intestines. Some of us may even have helminths, which are worms, and that's a whole nother subject, but some of them may be normal residents as well. And that's something that I'm interested in. So we have this ecology, we have this whole ecosystem in our gut, and it weighs about 3 pounds if you put it on the scale. And these things produce end products, which we call postbiotics, but they're chemical messengers that these bacteria produce. And those messengers can then interact with our human cells and tell our human cells messages, and even go across the barrier of the gastrointestinal tract into our own bloodstream, and then communicate with our brain, our other organ systems. So it's that's another way that our gut is communicating through the brain, is actually through the bacteria that then produce messenger molecules that then can communicate with our human cells. So when I tell people about this, you have to think of the numbers here. So we have about so we have 20,000 human genes, right? So your genes code for proteins. Those proteins create messenger molecules like hormones. So we have about 20,000 human genes. If you look at all the genes that are produced from your microbiome, you have about 2 to 20 million genes. It's about 100 to 1,000 fold times as many genes that are microbial. Right. This is where you get the thing that we're like 1% human, right? So that's where it's talking about your genetics. But it is pretty astounding because those things code for things that then can communicate with us in a variety of different ways, those postbiotics. So the numbers show how influential your bacteria can actually have on your mental health, yes, but your heart health, your kidney health, your, the placenta, like all of these different organ systems. So there's an ovarian gut axis, there's a liver gut axis for sure. So it's not just the gut brain. I also always add the caveat of it's bidirectional. So your brain influences your gut and your gut influences your brain. And we have to remember that. About 90% of my practice is gut health. And so I have people come in, and I get it, because actually this was me too, because I went down the research pathway and I was like, yes, it's all my gut. And so they'll come in and be like, yeah, I'm anxious. It's all my gut. Like, it's all due to the bugs in my gut. I'm like, okay, that's giving it a little too much power. Like, let's take some of that power back, because I think that you have something to do with your thoughts and beliefs as well.
Yes.
So
there's a little bit of a balance of that as well.
Totally. Yeah. It's like driving down the highway, you have road rage, and like you like beep or like back end somebody, and then you tell the police officer, I have dysbiosis in my gut. Like, I can't handle it. Like, you can't give away that much power to something that's not in your control, because I think that Definitely. If we can use meditation and things like that, then it's going to affect our gut health, which will then be a feed forward cycle as well.
Yeah, definitely. Please do not try that if you ever get pulled over. Yeah. That will not work. But yeah, that is, gut health in general, like these microbes are so fascinating and so cool to learn, like that. And that is a big part of, like, I'm glad you mentioned that there's so much more than just the gut brain connection. There's the gut hormone connection, gut skin connection, it's all connected, and often through the gut. And this is I really loved how you explained how that is. That's really, really cool. Awesome. Okay, so then let's talk. Okay, so we're going to break it down a little bit. So we talked about the gut-brain connection, and then now let's talk about your brain health and your mental health. Like, how is that connected? Because what I found is some people don't realize your brain health can affect your mental health. And so I want to make that clear. So
yeah, and there was a study actually done. This gives you two aspects of it. Okay, so this seems unrelated, but people with ulcerative colitis. So ulcerative colitis is an inflammatory bowel condition where there's inflammation in the intestines, right? And they did a study that showed that people with a higher number of ACEs, so adverse childhood events, things like divorce or, death of a parent, those are all adverse childhood events. And the higher the ACE scores, the more likely they are to develop ulcerative colitis. And so that shows how emotional things are then going into physical gut health things, right? The reverse, though, we've also seen. So we've seen that when you induce ulcerative colitis in the rat model, so if you give a rat ulcerative colitis, you also see hyperexcitation of the amygdala, which is the fear center of the brain that's associated with anxiety. So I like to bring that up because it really shows how bidirectional it is, that one can cause the other, and on the flip side as well. Your question was, okay, brain health versus mental health, like within that whole central nervous system, how is that related to each other? And it's kind of similar in terms of if there's inflammation in the brain, whether it be because you have a gut condition like ulcerative colitis that's leading to systemic inflammation and brain inflammation, I believe you're going to be more prone to things like depression. And there's actually studies that show, microglial activation and being overactivated, which are your immune cells in the brain, may potentially be a risk factor for depression. So things like that. But brain health in general, if we look at the basics for brain health, I always tell people we have to look at blood sugar stability. How stable are you throughout the day? If your blood sugar is going crazy because you're eating I'm a big fan of Smart Sweets, which are like the healthy gummy bears, but they're still not great for you. They do have fiber, which can stabilize your blood sugar. But if you're just eating like sweets or like crackers, even if they're like organic almond crackers, right, and you're not having protein and fats with meals, then your blood sugar is going to be going crazy throughout the day. That's also going to lead to anxiety. If you're anxious throughout the day, you're not going to be digesting your food. So there's going to be the gut connection there too. But in short, brain health is going to set you up for mental health. So making sure that your blood sugar levels are stable, and that if you have any inflammation throughout the body, you're really keeping that down and addressing it so that you're not predisposing yourself for any mental health conditions or just like not optimal mental health.
Exactly. And what I love that you're talking about the blood sugar, because that is really important. And as you know, but my listeners may not know, but they are starting to consider Alzheimer's, dementia, type 3 diabetes because of the level of insulin resistance. So that clearly shows that connection of how the insulin resistance or blood sugar dysregulation can lead to inflammation in the brain, which can then lead to wear and tear and things like Alzheimer's.
Yeah, 100%. Good point.
Yeah, definitely. Okay, so when someone is so you gave some strategies on like how they can improve their brain health, one thing being the blood sugar regulation. Other than that, what can people do to support their gut health and brain health in order to support their mental health? And then we'll get into mindset in a little bit too.
Yeah, absolutely. So with gut health and brain health, again, bi-directional, but I'll start with the gut. So for optimal gut health, you want to make sure, kind of doing a body scan, and you can just do a gut scan. So bloating, constipation, diarrhea, gas, belching, burping, feeling like things just sit in your stomach. Like, how do you actually feel after a meal? You need to get in tune with your body and tap in there. If you have any of the symptoms that I mentioned, then your gut health is not optimized. So that's the first step is, working with somebody ideally and figuring out why do you have those symptoms. And once you know the why, then you can go treat it. So you're going to treat chronic constipation differently than you would treat small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. So there's so many causes for all of these things. Same with like ulcerative colitis or Crohn's. You treat all of these things differently. So figuring out why you have the symptoms in the first place and then tackling that is going to be the first step. Now, for the people that have no symptoms and they're like, I feel great, but I want to optimize my brain health by optimizing my gut health. Then the foundations of that, I tell people of what are the building blocks for those postbiotics. So the postbiotics are the things that the bacteria produce that can either have positive or negative influences on our health. So negative influences, lipopolysaccharides. LPS can be a byproduct of gram-negative bacteria. So if you have an overgrowth of gram-negative bacteria, which you would know because you feel it likely, then you can have increases in lipopolysaccharides, which are endotoxins that can then breach the blood-brain barrier and cause that inflammatory response we were talking about, which may increase your risk for depression or anxiety or other mental health conditions. So again, addressing the issue first, and then also supporting the good bacteria. So we talked about possibly needing to decrease the bad bacteria if they're the gram negatives that are there, but also supporting the good guys. Because if you can outcrowd the bad guys, then you don't even need to talk about how you get rid of them, right? So supporting the guys that increase the production of GABA, your calming neurotransmitter. There's actually bugs in our gut that produce GABA on their own. There's bugs that produce tryptophan, which is the precursor to serotonin and melatonin, so that we can be happy, we can sleep, and we have gut motility. So there's all these bugs that are beneficial for us. They're supported by fiber. So fiber is one of the biggest things for gut health, especially if you're asymptomatic. You feel good. Are you eating enough fiber? So the USDA, I think, recommends like 20 grams of fiber, which is despicable. That's like enough to just make sure you're like living.
Yeah, it's
So
not even necessarily enough to make sure you have normal bowel movements.
I was going to say bowel movement. I was like, that's not
but
even
it's
enough to
not.
have bowel movement.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I'm telling people, you need to be aiming at 35 plus grams of fiber per day minimum, and take into consideration our ancestors ate about 100 grams per day. So that's still, really undershooting it. So fiber is going to help us produce things like butyrate, which is anti-inflammatory to our brain and to the rest of our body. And so fiber, polyphenols. So polyphenols are also a food source for your bacteria, and they're found in things like herbs, vegetables. These are our antioxidants. They're also what give your food color. So beta carotene, all of these things that are antioxidants are also going to be food sources for your good microbes. So increasing those as well. And then a probiotic. And with probiotics, it's really case dependent. So I just don't give everybody a probiotic. But if you have anxiety, or if you have depression, or if you have the flu, or if you have whatever you have going on, if there's a research study that shows a specific strain that can benefit you, then that would be something to look into as well. And your doctor could point you in the right direction as to what that would be.
Definitely. And I think just piggybacking off of that really quick, I know that you have studied a little bit more on the strains. And so are there particular strains that you know of that can be more beneficial for?
Yeah, and it's tough because strains are like these crazy letters and stuff. So I will tell you that some of them I don't remember off the top of my head. Lactobacillus rhamnosus, which is not a strain, but it's a species, has been studied in mice for reducing anxiety and depression. And I believe there's one that's Lactobacillus rhamnosus JB. Actually, let me see if I actually wrote it somewhere. I want to say it's JB1. That's the strain that is specific to anxiety. Lactobacillus. I got to get back to you on that one, but I think it's JB1. And then for depression, it's JB1. Confirmed.
Good.
For depression, there's so many that have been studied. A couple are going to be Lactobacillus brevis, W63, and Bifidobacterium bifidum, W23. And so, when I talk about strains, I'm always like HN001, that's a Lactobacillus rhamnosus strand for something different. But the strain is so specific because it's targeted at the exact microorganism, right? And so in research, you're using a strain specific thing. So to just say it's lactobacillus, there's so many lactobacillus out there. That's like saying, a cat versus a white striped tiger, I don't know why I've thought that myself, but it's way more specific, and they unlock different doors. So you want to make sure you have the right key for the door that you're trying to unlock.
Okay. Yeah. Shoot, I had a question that I totally blanked on with that, but what I was going to say was that this is why it's really important to consult a naturopathic doctor or a functional medicine doctor who understands your certain situations, and so that they can figure out which strains actually work for you.
Which strain, yeah.
And or if you do even need probiotics right now, because
not everybody does.
Yeah. Exactly. So there's a process to it. And then the other thing I wanted to comment on is before that you talked about the polyphenols and the color that comes, that is the color that creates, or that color in food. I can't speak right now. But so that is really important. This is why it's super important to get diversity, get the rainbow whenever you're eating, like all the foods, making sure that you're getting food diversity, and this helps to then diversify your gut bacteria and gut microbiome as well. And can you actually talk a little bit more about why diversity is important?
Yeah, that's a great point. And I always usually hit that until I forget. But, you brought up a point where when because I was nutrition, it was my background in school, and, people would be like, eat the rainbow, like eat all the colors of the rainbow. And I was like, that is so preschool. Like, why are we telling people that? That makes no sense. But if you actually look at the science behind it, then it's backed. Like, yes, you should totally eat the rainbow because you're actually eating the different like chemicals, which are natural chemicals, but the different constituents in the plants that are going to benefit your health differently. So nature does that by colors, and it just seems very elementary, but it's actually really backed by science why you want all of the colors of the rainbow. I found that I was like, oh, okay, I get it. I was just being like kind of a negative Nancy about the rainbow. Rainbows are cool, but your question was diversity. Diversity is king when it comes to your microbiome. So diversity of the microbiome, if you look at the research, what we know about the microbiome is actually very little right now. There's so much more to uncover. But if you said, what's the summary of everything that we know about the microbiome? Diversity is one of the biggest indicators of health and longevity when it comes to the microbiome. What does diversity even mean? It means that you have a bunch of different species, a bunch of different phyla even, of bacteria in your intestines. You don't just have one species and a lot of it, right? That would be very abundant, meaning you have high numbers, but you don't have a lot of different people. It's the same with people diversity. So right. Ethnicities of your intestines, will you? So, you know, you want to have a very, like a melting pot of bacteria in your intestines because they all feed off of each other differently. So you're going to get different health effects from different bacteria, and they balance each other out. If you have a whole bunch of one, then it could outcrowd all of the other ones, and you don't get the full effect that you would with a really diverse microbiome. Mm-hmm. They're also basing the research on our ancestral tribes. People like the Hazda populations, people are still living in tribal cultures, and they see that in these cultures, we have tons of diversity, like tons of diversity. And you see a negative or an inverse correlation with autoimmunity and diversity and things like that too. So we just see health trends and health improvements with an increase in diversity of the intestines. To get that diversity, you want to make sure that you're feeding yourself a whole diverse diet so that you're feeding all those different bugs, because they don't all feed off of the same exact things. So circulating your vegetables, which is why eating seasonally, another thing that sounds like super elementary, like, oh, eat with the seasons, eat the rainbow, but it has some backing to it because you're going to be eating different foods all the time. Exactly. A lot of us will have this, like, I don't know about you, but like during school, I was definitely like, if I didn't go grocery shopping, I was eating sardines, and then I would eat like frozen broccoli. And you get so used to the things that you like that you're eating like 4 or maybe 6 foods throughout the entire week, and then you just repeat the following week. Like you have your go-tos. Mm-hmm. You do it, right? I mean, we'll all do it sometimes.
Yeah, no, we definitely all do it. And I know in school I had like this burger and salad that was like my always go-to. Mm-hmm. But what eventually I started to do was change up the vegetables that went in my salad at least. Yeah. And, you know, and so now whenever I go grocery shopping, I try to be more mindful, or going to the farmer's market. I feel like that's really, really helpful. Getting the microbes from the different soil from our local farmers. I think that's really helpful. And I actually learned from you. Well, we could talk about this in a second, but I remember in med school, I learned from you that I think you said you don't wash your produce.
Which right now it's like, don't say that. I'm gonna get stoned.
I know, we can't say that now, but from the farm, when it came from the farmer's market, right? It was very specific. So grocery stores are different. Like they have already been sanitized, and you know, it's very different situation. Whereas farmers markets, you want to get that deep soil.
That soil.
So can you talk a little bit about that?
We have soil-based microorganisms, like little bugs that actually live in the soil that are meant for human consumption. There's things in the soil that you totally do not want. And so that, you know, I can get that there's a risk associated with it. If I know my farmer, or if I grow the food myself, especially, and I know where the soil is coming from and it's organic, it's not sprayed with pesticides, then I'm definitely not going to wash off every granule of dirt, because I think that there's some health properties in the dirt, including those soil-based microorganisms that can really benefit your GI tract. These guys are also heat resistant most of the time, so they're not going to be degraded by your stomach acid. They're a little bit more hardy. Making sure that you get a little bit of dirt sometimes, if we're not in the whole COVID pandemic and it's safe to do so, then I think is really important for your health. It's also just naturally how we were supposed to eat. There was no way we would triple wash all of our lettuce so that everything was pristine. And this comes from the hygiene hypothesis. So the idea that we're too clean as a society, which we cannot talk about this
again. It's really weird to talk about right now, but it is true. And
it is, and it doesn't go away just because COVID's here, and we're actually, you know, this is the first time I've thought about it, but the over sanitization of things, like I do worry about our gut health in some ways. So if you can grow things on your patio, or if you have access to things that you know where that was grown, and you know, you can kind of get your hands dirty and in the soil, because we know from the research that populations that totally wiped out all of the helminths, like parasites, they have increased risk for autoimmune conditions.
Right.
And so that's kind of going along with that hygiene hypothesis that we are meant to evolve with bugs. We have a symbiotic relationship with a lot of them. Parasitic relationships mean that only one person is winning. So those parasites that we don't want, things like Giardia or, you know, other bugs that can create an issue, yeah, we don't want those. But the ones that are actually symbiotic, they're giving things back to us, like healthy immune system, and we're giving them a place to live temporarily.
Right. Yeah. And that is why it's so important. Okay. So I think we kind of went off on a tangent, but it is really good information on optimizing gut health. But let's get back to then the mindset and mental health and how that can, I mean, I know you talked about how it's bidirectional, but how can your mindset actually affect your gut health?
Yeah, and this is like my jam, because I think that this is a big piece of gut health. It's a big piece of health, actually, yes. I would say in general. So your thoughts and your beliefs, they're constantly going on in the back of your head. About like 80 or 90 something percent of our thoughts are repetitive. Like we have the same thoughts all day long, but we have so many of them. And a lot of them are subconscious. So I think it's about like 80% of what we're thinking, like we're not actually aware of what we're thinking. Mm-hmm. And so with all of this going on in our head, it's going to affect our physical health. When people come to see me, I automatically give them the book, You Are the Placebo by Joe Dispenza, because he dives into detail about how we can use our thoughts for a positive effect on our health, which would be the placebo effect, or we can use them for a negative effect on our health, which is the nocebo effect. So if you are constantly saying to yourself or others, your family, I'm bloated, I don't feel good, like my stomach hurts, the more you put that out in the universe, the more it's going to just be true for you, and the more you're going to experience it. So it's kind of a fake it till you make it approach that I tell people, in terms of really switching your thoughts to fully believe that you are health, you're abundance, you have the ability to heal yourself innately, which is one of the principles of naturopathic medicine, the innate ability to heal one's own body, right? As well as using natural medicine. But if you can really switch your thoughts to saying, I got this, like my body's got this, it's done it before, I'm totally healthy, and my brain and my thoughts are actually going to heal my body. It sounds woo-woo, but I've seen it time and time again be the turning point for individuals that have this like chronic nature. Small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, IBS, these are chronic conditions that can really get people stuck in there, but I've seen too many people now leave that chronic condition and never return it, that I know it's a possibility. And usually the key is going to be that mental switch. Once you're ready to say, okay, I'm no longer that diagnosis, I'm no longer that condition, I'm ready to leave it, that's usually when people actually do.
Yes, and that is so important, because I feel like in our culture in general, we tend to identify so much with our diseases, and we tend to go into that sort of mindset. So, I mean, I see so often people will even do like, so I personally have Hashimoto's, and I've seen someone be like hashtag Hashimoto's warrior, and like just identifying with this. And I feel very strange about that. I'm like, okay, that is maybe a little part of me that I have right now, but it doesn't have to be with me forever. And I'm letting it go, right? And so I do think it is a very interesting dynamic, because I do see that in our culture, we tend to do that often. And I actually had another episode that you all can listen to, where I talk about the power of words, and very similarly talk about how the English language is really strange, because I speak 2 other languages, and like Spanish a little bit, can understand, you know, but with those other languages, we don't ever say I am something. You always, with your I am my emotion. So like in English, we would say I am depressed, or I am sad, or I am angry. In other languages, the way we would always say it is I feel, which makes it more temporary, right? And
that's
we're
really
allowed to feel what we feel, but when when we say I am, we're making it more permanent. We're saying that this
Yeah.
is who we are. So
Yeah.
I think that's a big part of changing that mindset too, just becoming very mindful, like, okay, like you're okay, you're allowed to feel sad. That's totally okay.
Yep.
And feel that. But remind yourself that that's not who you are.
Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, that's super powerful. I love that. And that's a great realization too, that our language is not set up. Linguistics are really important. Like the words that you choose either to describe yourself in your own head, even if you're not verbalizing it, but also how you communicate with other people. Like, oh, I feel like shit today. Well, you know, is that really going to benefit you, or are you just going to feel shittier because you put it out there? That's my belief. And we still all do it, but it's really retraining ourselves for, you know, having a positive light on everything. And everything doesn't have to be rainbows and butterflies. Like you can be feeling not great some days, and I get that. And I still have the days that I feel like that. But if we can realize, like exactly what you said, this is temporary and I'm going to move out of it. And these are the tools that I've cultivated in my toolbox to, you know, to allow me to move out of it. I'm going to do some breath work, and I'm going to focus on my breath so I can forget about my stomach. And then before you know it, your stomach's not even a thought in your mind anymore.
Definitely. Yeah. And it's about having those tools. I really like that. It's having those tools for yourself, whether it's breath work or journaling or meditating or yoga or whatever it is for you, just like allowing yourself to take a step back and realizing that this isn't you, this is temporary. Yeah. I think that's very powerful. Okay. I think we kind of covered kind of all over the place, but quite a few things. Oh, I wanted to ask, so initially you talked about the vagus nerve and that physical connection between the gut and the brain. Do you know of some good ways where we can activate that vagus nerve?
Yeah, so vagal nerve exercises can be used for a bunch of different things. But if you're constipated, food feels like it's sitting in your stomach, you're not regularly having bowel movements, so once per day you should have a full bowel movement. Or if you have reflux, even that's a sign that things are going the opposite direction with reflux. So the vagus nerve is responsible for that motility of the intestinal tract in part. And your vagus nerve is triggered by a few different things. Meditation is a great one for vagal nerve exercises. Gargling with water. So gargling with water is actually lifting weights for, the muscles in your esophagus that are innervated by the vagus nerve. So if you gargle with water for a prolonged period of time, it can kind of hard, like really gargling with the water, not just like, you want like heavy weight action with your gargling. That'll actually trigger the vagus nerve to fire and get you some of the effects that you're looking for. The other thing is going to be singing really loudly or humming, but I prefer singing because we all need to hear people singing more often.
It's so much fun. That's like my excuse for jamming out in the car all the time. I'm like, I'm just activating my vagus nerve.
Yeah, car and the shower, two really safe places for bad singers to belt it out. Singing, gargling, walking is probably my favorite thing for gut health in general. It's going to trigger your parasympathetic, your vagus nerve, but also just the mechanical and gravity forces of walking help stimulate motility independently. And it's just a great exercise for blood sugar regulation and like everything else in health. So walking's on my list as well. Those are some good ones. There's a lot of different vagal nerve exercises, but those are good to start with.
Yeah, I really like those. Those are definitely great things
to. Do you have a favorite?
What?
Do you have a favorite?
My favorite's definitely singing, but the other one that I do every day, I actually tongue clean with a stainless steel tongue cleaner, and I'll do like the gag reflex, which
reflex
is really helpful.
Not as fun.
It's not as fun, but it does help, and like I'm already there anyway, so it's just like something that I do. But yeah, those are the two main things that I try to do regularly, but also gargling. I need to do that more. Okay, but the other thing I was gonna mention was that I do notice a difference with like my bowel movements after walking, like just like after a meal, if I sit down on the couch right after, or if I go on a walk, it's just like I feel my bowel movements are way more optimal whenever I go walking.
The optimal, yes, that's good.
Yeah, we want it to be optimal. Okay, do you have anything else that you would like to mention before we go into the rapid fire questions?
Um, you know what? No, I feel like we covered a good amount of stuff, so
Okay,
I think we're
okay.
good.
And any other resources? So you mentioned Dr. Joe Dispenza's book, so I will have that in the
Yeah,
show notes.
you are the placebo. Every one of his books I would recommend, but
Okay,
that's a great one for, it doesn't have to be gut health either. It can be anything in health. If you have a heart condition, literally does not matter, weight loss, whatever it is.
yeah, everything. Mindset can help with everything,
Mm-hmm.
and it's just a very clear thing. And so, any other resources that you know of or can
Um,
think of?
yeah, well, I have my gut health course, which is
Oh,
free to
yes.
watch. Yeah, it's totally free to watch for 10 days. And it's a ton of information. I literally made this course because I couldn't reach enough people with just seeing them one-on-one. And so we deep dive, like I give you like nitty gritty details, and we talk all about all of the health conditions that are gut related. So reflux, IBD, inflammatory bowel disease, irritable bowel syndrome, IBS, SIBO, yada, yada, yada. And so that one, you can sign up for it at modrnmed.com/gut health. So again,
Okay.
it's totally free to watch and get in there.
That's so cool that it's free, and I will definitely also have that in the show notes.
Cool.
So definitely check that out because that seems awesome, and I think I might do that too. But okay, let's get into the rapid fire question. So we talked about what Mahan health means, and again, we've been talking about that this entire time. It's like optimizing your health. So what does Mahan health mean to you?
Yeah, so like optimal great health to me means being able to fulfill and live out your passion without feeling that you're limited. So whatever that is for whoever you are, I think that's one of my big definers of Mahan health.
Okay, yeah, I love that. That's a big part of what I think, being able to live out your dreams and
Mm-hmm.
passions. Okay, so the next two could be related. They don't have to be, it's up to you, but I'm going to ask them together. What was the most difficult health change for you to make personally, and what are you still working on?
Oh, no cheese. Getting rid of cheese was like my final straw.
Dairy is hard.
I like cheese. Yeah, milk not so much, but like just cheese, like a good manchego or like cheddar.
Hmm.
So that's mine. And then what am I still working on? Oh, where to start? I'm still working on a bunch of things. More, I think the biggest thing for me is letting go and doing less. So with that comes like more meditation, getting in more repetitions of breath work, those kinds of things. I'm definitely more type A, so it's get the letting go piece that I'm working on more.
Yeah, cool. Thank you for sharing.
Mm-hmm.
I think cheese is definitely a hard one for a lot of people, and then also letting go. So
Yeah, letting go of the cheese.
letting go of the cheese. Yeah, letting go of it all. All right. My last question for you is, if you could have a commercial about health, like a PSA, what would it be about and why?
It would be about the optimal poop. Because I really think
I
that
love
we
it.
have to have you've got to have a good poop. And I talk about it in my gut health course, like what is even a good poop? But if you, I like regret saying this one already, but if you have like a really full bowel movement in the morning, you're going to feel differently than if you didn't. And that's where the
100%.
mental health piece comes in. If you've ever been like super constipated or you've had like diarrhea all day, like your mental health ain't going to be at the point where you need it to be to pursue your passions and your dreams and things like that. So ultimate poop commercial.
I love it. Yeah, no, definitely. I am grateful for my bowel movements every single day because like you, like yourself, I did not have optimal digestion. And so now every single day, I'm very grateful because it does
I'm going
make
to
a
write that in my
difference.
gratitude journal. My poop hasn't made it yet, but
Oh, really? Oh, it's got to be
tomorrow it
there.
will.
It's got to be there. Okay. All right. So that's all I got for you. Thank you so much. Where can people find you? You're all over. Where, like,
Awesome, yeah. Thanks. Thanks for having me. The best places to follow me content-wise are Instagram, DR, m.marypardee. And my website is modrnmed.com, no E in modrn, so modrnmed.com, and then / gut health for that course sign up as well.
Okay, awesome. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Mary.
Thank you, Dr. Hanisha. I appreciate you.
Of course, I appreciate you too. Thank you.
Bye.
I hope you all enjoyed that episode and now have a better understanding of how your gut health can most definitely impact your mental health and vice versa. So if you're experiencing mental health concerns, make sure you check your gut. And if you're experiencing gut symptoms, make sure you check your mindset. I know Dr. Mary discussed how during her journey, she started with focusing on the physical and then moved towards mindset shifts. So I wanted to mention that I actually had the opposite experience. I've been working on my mindset for far longer than I've been working on my physical health, but my work on my mindset helped me make the changes I needed to make for my physical health. I say this to let you all know that we usually fit into one category or the other, but it's really, really, really important to address both. Okay, so that's all on my little spiel. I will have Dr. Mary's information and the resources we mentioned in the show notes below, so make sure to check that out. Make sure to check out her free gut health course. She's a wealth of knowledge, and to have all of that for free is crazy, but so awesome. I'm so excited she's doing that. And before I let you all go, I wanted to mention that I know we talked about getting those microbes from the soil, from our food, but be sure to be safe and cautious. Know where your food is coming from so you can optimize your microbiome and your overall health. This is extremely important, especially during this time of the COVID-19 pandemic. Just be very cautious and try to shop with local farmers, getting your food from people you trust and know, and making and supporting the local farmers. I think this is really important during this time. So I just wanted to mention that. But that is all I have for you all today. I'm wishing you all Mahan health, and I will see you next time.